So let me call the December 4, 2025 meeting of the Board of Health to order. We're in the Harbor Masters Conference Room. This is a hybrid meeting, meaning that the public is welcome to attend this meeting, but there's also a Zoom link which you can join. But please be advised that the in-person meeting, this meeting, will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. So, as is our usual practice, let's go around the table and introduce themselves. I'm Joe Rosa, Chair.
Marco Bello, board member.
Aaron George, board member.
Dave Sargent, advisor to the septic subcommittee.
Chelsea Wilson Walsh, regional prevention director.
Rocco DeFilippis, assistant general counsel for the city.
Dominique Curley, director.
Gabriella, assistant director.
Cody Smith, city sanitarian.
Eric Kaplan, vice chairman of the vice chairperson.
And do we have Fred on?
Says he's in.
I have a bunch of guests that don't see Fred.
Fred Cowan is also likely to join us as a member of the septic review subcommittee. Next item on the agenda is public oral communication. That's an opportunity for anyone in the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on an item that is not on the agenda.
Any of the attendees or guests want to speak on a non-agenda item, please raise your hand. I don't have any hands raised.
Okay. Next item is the approval of the October 16th Board of Health meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the October 16th meeting minutes, which I had put edits as in the packet.
Very good.
I second that.
Seconded by Marco. Any discussion, changes, edits? Motion to approve as written.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve as written. Yeah.
Very good. Let's call the vote.
Aaron, yes.
Marco, yes.
Joe Rosa, yes. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the November 6th minutes. I was absent from that meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
We make a motion to accept the November 6th meeting minutes as written.
Any discussion? Vote.
Rick, yes.
Marco, yes.
Aaron, yes.
Very good. So next item is approval of the board meeting schedule for this coming year. Is there any fundamental changes there?
So Danielle Larrabee has a proposal. Is Danielle online?
Yeah, Danielle's on.
Danielle, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
So just really quickly, before we get into the discussion of the future meetings, would you please, at your leisure, send Fred a panelist link, please? Fred Cowan. Yeah. He's online, but we can't. There's a lot of people online, so we
There's
can't
only
figure
four.
out who
I
he
just
is.
don't know which one it is.
There's one that says Zoom user guest. Would that be him?
Try that. Let's see. Sorry to hold you up, Joe.
It's all right.
Make a panelist, yes.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Often thwarted by technology.
Fred, are you the Zoom user guest? You can speak now if you want. No.
All right, I'll just say Daniel's sending him a panelist. Sending some panelists. Okay, so Daniel,
Right now.
schedule, please. Danielle,
Yeah.
are you going to make recommendations for what the meeting schedule should be for the board?
Oh, yes. It's in the packet, in the printouts. But I can pull it up as well.
Would you mind? Be helpful.
Just give me 1 second.
can pull it up too if you want me to, Danielle.
Yeah,
That's
but
okay. I have it right here. Mm,
So I presume this is still the first, when possible, the first Thursday of the month. And
yes.
real value of this is that you should have this taped to your refrigerator. You should be aware of when the meeting is, and if you're not going to be present, to inform us as early as possible. I say that for myself as well.
It seems fine to me.
Okay,
So can you prove that so we can?
we have to approve it.
I move that we approve the Board of Health meeting schedule for 2026.
Likewise, Joe Rosa approves.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on to the meat of the meeting.
I did want to bring up that there are no septic review subcommittee meeting scheduled. I didn't know if that was something that you want to schedule or if that's going to be scheduled on an as needed basis.
I leave it to the members of the subcommittee.
I leave it up to Cody.
I mean, I would schedule probably as needed. We'll still shoot for the same third Thursday of the month, basically, so we have them spaced out. And yeah, kind of schedule as needed, because I think we can be flexible around schedules if that works for everybody.
We've been able to combine it with this meeting pretty easily as well, so that we don't have double meetings for the board members.
Okay,
Sounds
Danielle,
good.
You see him as a panelist? Or an attendee?
Specifically under his name. No.
I just sent him a.
Thank you, Danielle.
are we set?
Yes.
We believe so. Just Fred is ill, so he can't be here in person, so he's dialing in, but we just have to get him the right link.
There he is.
Hello, Fred.
Oh, you're usually there.
Yay. Okay,
Hi, Fred.
everyone's focused.
All right, Fred, we're on to the continuation of the meeting of November 4 regarding a property on Two Penny Lane.
Good.
And has requested a variance to section 211 of Gloucester's on-site wastewater regulations that require a 200-foot setback to a coastal resource area.
Thank you.
John, thank you. As I'm sure everyone's aware, these regulations are intended to limit the additional burden on the environment imposed by new construction. And that obviously that issue has become increasingly important in this current era of climate change. Now, since the variance request concerns new construction, section 410.1 subsection C requires that a variance be considered only if not doing so would deprive the applicant of substantially all beneficial use of the subject property in order to be manifestly unjust. I believe this is largely the argument that was made on November 4th, and the board wanted more legal guidance and information before proceeding to a vote. Since those legal issues have now been looked at by our Assistant General Counsel to the city, Rocco Di Filippi, and he's ready to provide that information to the board. Before you start, Rocco, I just want to give people some idea of the process here. I want to give the applicant the opportunity to add further address their application as they see fit, and then we can turn to Rocco. Any additional comments to be made?
Well, we can just introduce ourselves once again. For the record, John Judd, professional engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing the Mary family. We prepared the plan, did the soil testing, and as you know, Mr. Chairman, we've had several of these types of systems approved over the years. along the within coastal dunes. As you know, this plan that was presented meets all of Title V. This is strictly a local bylaw that has been instituted fairly recently relative to Title V. But nonetheless, it does meet all Title V standards with the exception. Obviously, that's not something where this entire site is considered coastal dune. We have no other option, obviously, but we have provided advanced treatment, and I think the members of the board all agree that the environmental aspect of the system there's no issue with the environmental impact of the septic system. It's I guess it's more the and I'll let the board speak to that. It's just the impacts overall to the environment that you're concerned about, not necessarily the septic effluent. But with us tonight is Deb Ellison, who is the attorney representing the Mary family. She may have some other items to add.
Yes, Deborah Ellison for the record, Ellison Law Office, 63 Middle Street, Gloucester. With us tonight also is the Ameri family, Dr. Ameri and his wife, his son, Aman, and his daughter, Layla. Obviously, this is a very important issue for them, and they've made the decision to come before the board so you can put a face to the decision that you're making. The plan that there were a couple comments that were made by the sanitarian, and I believe the plan is to include the deed reference for 19-2 Penny Lane. I also looked at the deed restrictions. I don't know if that is still an issue with legal counsel.
Oh, I was just making reference that our regulation requires any current restrictions to be included on the plan. I'm not aware if there are any or not. That was just one of the concerns about the requirements for the plan.
Maybe I should address that since it was brought up. There were deed restrictions put on this property in or about 1965. And as statutory law, they would have expired in 30 years. They were also allowed under statute to be extended in 20-year increments. There was one extension, and that expired in 2015. So in my opinion, that those restrictions are no longer viable. The restriction was that there could only be one house on each lot that was in the subdivision. There was no restriction against subdividing the property. And as I said, the restrictions have expired over 10 years ago. There was some discussion last time about the old regs versus the new regs, and there really hasn't been any change in the variance standard. Both variances from the 2008 amended regs say that you have to show that it's manifestly unjust, considering all of the relevant facts and circumstances in the individual case. Same exact wording in your 2025 regs. Also, with regard to new construction, they both say that you have to deprive the applicant of substantially all beneficial use of the property in order to be manifestly unjust. There was one change where there was an addition that if there is that the financial hardship cannot be the sole factor that you consider. And so what I would say is that there haven't been a change to your regs. There's been a change in the interpretation of the regs. And I'm not saying that you can't do that. You absolutely can change your interpretation over time. But what you can't do is you can't decide that for all new construction, you are not going to grant a variance. That creates a nullity. And when I was at the hearing, the last hearing, that's exactly what I was hearing from the director, was that her interpretation is that there are no set of circumstances where new construction can get a variance. And well, on your interpretation, you said that if you can look at the property, you can put a bench on the property. If you can look out at the ocean, then there's no manifest injustice because you have a use of the property. And I would argue that there isn't any situation that a property could meet that standard. And so it makes the variance provision a nullity. Your regs allow a variance for new construction. And so you need to look at all of the circumstances surrounding the property. This property has been identified as a separate lot by the city of Gloucester since 1995. It has been assessed as a separate lot, a separate buildable lot, has a separate address. And although it is under the same ownership, since the last meeting, I have done a search of the title and have determined that it is all owned by the trust and not separately owned. However, it is a separate lot. After the meeting, there was a discussion among the board, which I would suggest should not have taken place. This is a hearing, and so once it was continued and the applicant left, the discussion really should have stopped. But during that discussion, there was a mention that if the sanitarian had said during the meeting and said during or after discussion that the system was safe and that it protected the environment. He agreed with Mr. Judd that that was the case. But he said, you don't know the future and you don't know what the future will hold. That's speculation. You can't base your decision on that speculation of not knowing whether this system 50 or 100 years from now will be considered safe. In summary, you have before you a septic design that protects the public health, it protects the environment, and to that extent, it is at least equivalent to what the regulations require. You have a property that is currently buildable, and it's been assessed as buildable for 30 years. And the fact that the Amarys own both lots is irrelevant. There's nothing in your regulations that say that you look at anything but the particular lot that's before you. Overnight, if you deny this variance, it will be unbuilt. And I suggest to you that that's the very definition of manifestly unjust. And I would ask that you grant the variance for the Amarys. And we're happy to answer any further questions or address any comments from council.
Before you speak in general, Rocco, I just want to make clear to everyone in the audience, both here and online, that prior to any vote by the board, members of the public will be able to speak either for or against this project. So, Rocco.
I would, for the record, Rocco D. Philippus, Assistant General Counsel for the city. I would just, my sister is correct that the standard is contained in the regulation, but the regulation, when the standards are stricter in the local regulation, they're essentially treated as Title V requirements. So the standard under Title V applies to a variance that is based on a stricter local regulation. And so the standard is well known that the person requesting the variance has the burden to establish that enforcement of this particular regulation, which is the coastal dune set or the coastal resource area setback, would be manifestly unjust considering all the circumstances, but also because it's new construction. Our regulation specifically defines manifestly unjust to include that it deprives the applicant of substantially all beneficial use of the property. Not that it would limit or foreclose certain types of use or the best use or a better use, but that denial would result in a deprival of all beneficial use. My sister and I might disagree.
Is she really your sister?
It's a thing that attorneys say in
Oh, okay.
Massachusetts.
I'm sorry to be so.
It's a thing that we do here in the Commonwealth. But a lot is under, this assessor's treatment of the property is not binding on this board. It has nothing to do with Title V or our local regulation or zoning or any of those other things. The jurisdiction of this board is to make a determination if the applicant has satisfied the criteria that are contained in our regulation and in Title V. The title history is abundantly clear that this lot has only ever been conveyed or legally described as one lot, as Lot 1 from the 1964 plan. That does affect the idea that it's a buildable lot or not, because taxing the lot is how the tax treatment of the lot is not an issue that is before the board. There's a whole way in which people can address the taxable treatment of their property with the city, and that's outside the jurisdiction board to decide whether or not it was properly taxed or what the proper tax would be. I think that it is clear that that both portions of this property are one lot. And so the question of whether or not the applicant has met their burden under the standard would be if you cannot put a septic system on what we'll call 19 Twopenny, does it deprive that entire piece of property of all its substantially all its beneficial use? And that is the burden that the applicant must demonstrate to the board's satisfaction. The grant of a variance is discretionary. If the board is inclined to grant it, it must find that all of the criteria are established.
Could you further elaborate on the A&R?
And so an A&R is a tool that is used under the subdivision control law. It's not again in the jurisdiction of this board. It does not affect Title V. What it does is it shows that the proposal shown on the plan is not a subdivision that requires further review by the planning board. The only aspect of zoning that the planning board considers when they endorse an A&R is frontage, but any other dimensional requirements are not part of that certification, and you cannot use an A&R to say, oh, this is a buildable lot or not. They all come with a very standard disclaimer that they're not it's not a certification of compliance with zoning. Whether or not the division shown on that 1992 A&R is the lot there it's essentially not relevant to the board's determination at this point, because I think that we have the applicant has agreed that what was conveyed to them was lot 1 in the 1964 plan. It's never been conveyed in any other way. And so the relationship of the full property, I think, is a proper consideration for the board to take when they determine whether or not the applicant has met the standard to show that denial would deprive substantially all beneficial use. That's what I would say about an A&R. Again, the board's not making any determinations as to zoning. They're not authorized to determine whether or not it's a buildable lot. These would be things that would be on the burden of the applicant to demonstrate to the board.
May I?
I just had a question for the council, if I could. So as far as the use, beneficial use, what is the use of this property in the eyes of the Gloucester zoning ordinance?
The use of the property is in relation to should be considered in relation to the whole lot. Whether it provides access to the waterfront would be of value. Whether or not it's available for accessory structures 221 would be a question. But the beneficial use of a particular piece of property is not necessarily determinant on whether it's buildable or not. Residential development is a beneficial use of land, but it is not the only use of land.
But this is residentially zoned?
Is it a residential?
Okay, so when you say accessory, potentially an accessory use could be done here?
I'm not making the board is not asked to make a determination of what.
No, I'm asking you a question. What would be an accessory another use?
I haven't seen a particular plan or I haven't seen a sufficient amount of information to understand whether or not the lot is buildable, how the 1992 A&R would apply to the various changes in the zoning ordinance that have occurred over the years. The question before the board is whether the applicant has demonstrated that denial would result in substantially all beneficial use, and the burden is on the applicant to show that.
So that's my question. Use. So the use is residential. It's residentially zoned. So what can you put here other than a residence based on the Gloucester zoning ordinance?
My understanding is that since we're talking about the entirety of the property, because there is already a house on the property.
And I would dispute that. I mean, I think when I was representing municipalities for many, many years, one thing I always told my clients was the city is the city is the city. You have a lot of different arms, but the city, you are the city, the Board of Assessors are the city. And even though you're not the Board of Assessors and it's not your job to make a determination or the planning board to make a determination as to whether this is a separate lot, the city has made that determination. And we have presented you with viable and legal information to show that this is a separate lot. And therefore calling it one lot and saying because they already have one house on that lot, they can't now have another, I don't think is a reasonable. It doesn't show that there is no more beneficial use. The Board of Assessors for 30 years has assessed this as as a buildable lot. There was no reason for my clients to think that they should seek an abatement, because until a few weeks ago, when they applied and submitted their plan, they didn't know that the Board of Health was going to take a position that they could not get a variance when there is only one issue that they do not meet, or one requirement that they do not meet under the Board of Health regulations.
How many should it not meet for it to be?
I think what you're saying, or what has been said, is that a variance cannot be granted with new construction if you don't meet all the requirements. You don't need a variance if you meet all the requirements. So the only reason for anyone to come before you for a variance would be that they don't meet a requirement. And here it's one.
Absolutely.
Everything else has been met. They've also met the requirements in the regulations that talk about protecting the health and safety, and that's what your regulations are directed to. Your regulations are directed to protecting health and safety and not to prohibiting development. And as John said, there isn't any other use that can be made of this parcel as a separate lot, which I would contend it is, and I think the city has recognized that it is, the planning board has recognized that it is. There's a plan on record that recognizes that it is. So without more than that, I would suggest that this board has no grounds to deny the variance.
So the issue of, Rocco, if you could address further, the issue of one lot, two lots, and deeds, and what the city has done, what's recorded.
I would say that the assessor's treatment of the lot is not a determination that it either is or isn't buildable. The assessor does not apply the zoning law. The A&R, to the extent that it has any relevance to these proceedings, it does not show a subdivision that requires further review by the planning board, and and the plan has sufficient frontage. That's what an A&R can establish. For the title history to convey the same lot, since these lots were created, suggests that they are one lot, and it's uncontested they're in common ownership. So the effective denial should consider that fact, and that the burden. It's not that the standard is that no application for new construction can receive a variance. It's that every application for variance, the applicant is required to demonstrate that it would be manifestly unjust to enforce the particular regulation that they're seeking a variance from. So they'd have to show why it would be manifestly unjust to not allow this system to be seated within a coastal dune. They would also have to show, because it's new construction, that that I would deprive them of substantially all beneficial use. But I think I don't want to say it goes without saying, but if the denial would make the property worthless, that would be a reduction of substantially all beneficial use. But again, the question is not, does it deprive the owner of the best use or a better use, but substantially all use. And I think that when you consider the lot in a whole, that would be what the applicant would have to show to the board for it to consider whether or not the criteria is met.
You know, if I may respond, I think what you have to remember is that it's all beneficial use, not all use. Those are two different things. There has to be some beneficial use, some benefit to the owner of the use of that property. And I would suggest to you that there isn't any left if you deny this variance. There is no beneficial use to that property. And if it comes down to the issue of whether this is one lot or two lots, I think it's somewhat disingenuous of the city to change its mind 30 years later.
So hypothetically, could the applicant satisfy the transfer, create two different lots by getting the deeds properly recorded? And
my advice in this situation would be the board should not engage in some type of speculative or hypothetical, attempt to understand what the applicant could or couldn't do with their property. The burden is on the applicant to demonstrate that to the board that it has met the criteria. The grant of a variance is discretionary. And when the board considers the application, it has to consider those three required criteria, whether or not they have been established.
And I would argue that we have met that burden. There are many deeds that people own two properties and they convey by the same deed. And so we have shown to you a plan that has been approved by the city. We have 30 years of history where the city has shown it to different lots. So I would suggest to you that the applicant has met its burden.
Just. Yeah, sure. I mean, just another thing, that has come up is that, just because a lot's potentially subdivided as an A&R, like Rocco was saying, it's due to basically frontage in the lot size. It doesn't necessarily take into account like conservation rules or septic rules, so you could carve up an A&R and, or you could carve up a piece of land and still have it subdivided out and it meets those frontage regulations. It doesn't make that lot necessarily buildable if what you carved out is all of a wetland in this case, it was, carved out to be its own, part of the coastal dune, which is still part of the house that's there. So, but it is all just one lot. And so the applicants almost made their own hardship by subdividing the land out and then saying, well, you're going to deny me for not letting me build here.
That they didn't subdivide it.
And I would agree if that were done, a month ago, and then they came in and said to you, now we're looking for a variance. That would be a whole different story. This was something that was done decades ago before these rules were even in existence.
I don't have any, I appreciate the context that Rocco provided after the last meeting and what you all shared. So should we hear from other people now or
Yeah.
what is it?
Unless they're right.
These are two different numbers property. Can someone explain that to me a little bit better? I'm hearing it's one property, if there's two addresses.
Yeah, so, okay, I can pull up any of the plot plans if you want me to, Rocco.
The assessors treat this as two different lots based on the endorsement of the A&R 1992, but it has never been conveyed to, or is included as part of like a real estate transaction where it's been sold or title has been conveyed under any other description other than as lot one on the 1964 plan. I have the title history here that I will submit to the board. But the legal description of this property, every time it has been conveyed in a real estate transaction, is always the same 10.18 acres that is shown as lot one on the 1964 subdivision plan. So there is a whole host of reasons why a landowner may choose to have an A&R endorsed, but there's no requirement that it be recorded. There's no requirement that it ever be conveyed in that way. Again, getting away from things that are speculative or beyond the board's jurisdiction with understanding the subdivision control law or chapter 40A. I would say that if you're looking at common ownership and control, it is clear that what the city's assessors call 19 and 21 Twopenny is the same lot that has always been owned by the current owners and the predecessors in title.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
And I can put this is the deed history that is available at the registry.
It's up there too, Rocco. So this is lot one, which is that whole lot.
And that's the 1964 subdivision plan that's referenced on the applicant's Sudan. So I would say that an A&R has no effect after 3 years of endorsement on subsequent amendments to a local health regulation, such as the on-site wastewater regulation. So I don't think that the changing of our regulations as to setbacks as time has gone on, the board should consider particularly the first element, which is whether or not the applicant's demonstrated that enforcement of the setback would be manifestly unjust. It's a nuanced criteria that's different from the new construction one, but they are three distinct findings that must be made.
Any other comments from the board right now? Is there anyone either online or present that would like to speak?
Yes, we do. Say your name and.
Perhaps we should come a little bit closer.
My name is Alice Pell and my property abuts the property in question. Part of the reason that I'm here is our experience with the coastal dune and its fragility. We lost our house, it fell into the ocean 3 years ago. And I've been monitoring the what's happening along in the last 3 weeks. We've had 3 instances where we have lost due to erosion by excessively high tide. We've lost property, and my estimate was that we lost 3 feet in the last 2 days. So I think that as we think about the coastal dune aspects of it, it's not a moot question. It is very much an area in transition. And we've got some sort of high dunes that are particularly fragile. My concern is that it's not the final product. I actually have a Judd-built septic system. It's not
Design.
It's not the design part of it. It's the fragility of the environment itself has to be taken into account.
And so is what you're discussing south on that map or north?
To the right. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
In other words, the water access is at the bottom of that picture as well as at the top. So what are you describing?
I'm just describing the part that is opposite Cranes Beach, the real channel, not Farm Creek.
So this actually
Yeah.
Cody, if you understand where that is, can you?
So she's talking about the beach on this side, which is Coffin's Beach. So here's the Essex River here. So her lot, according to John, is right up in this area. So she's talking about erosion along the beach line here in the coastal dune.
Right, but it looks like the coast is a constant location, and my point is that location has changed significantly, and it continues to change, and that any disruption of the dune affects what happens immediately out of that.
Address Joe.
Please.
Her fault, neighbor. I kind of was self-appointed, not appointed president association out there for 40 years. I talked to everybody. I wish I had more people here, but one's in St. John's and the others have a hip replacement. And Xavier's still alive. The reality is, the neighborhood's not happy with it. I can tell you, I talked to the head of Greenbelt, the president, Chris Lapointe. He's disturbed about it, how it's squeezed in there. We never knew about Lot 19. After all these years, the only reason I found out about it was there was a brochure sent to me about it. I knew John Carter, who owned it for a ton of years. I've been out there for 40 years. John lost his house in bankruptcy court because he was basically stupid. He had a number of attachments to the house before the Amaras bought it. I don't think you knew this. He had divided that land, it appeared to me, which isn't on the deeds, does not have it. I was down the deeds, they don't have a deed. Maybe you might want to get one for this land. It appeared to me that he really did it to grab money to save his lifeline to the house. It was never meant to be divided. We've had 2 covenances on it. Maybe Sis can document this to me, but we had a 30-year and a 30-year. That was up as of September. We were understood with the legal counsel that we could not have another third. Evidently in the state, you cannot get 3, 4, 5, you just have 2. So therefore, the land came up. And I was interested to hear your comments about this too. But there is the environmental issue. There is the location to it. John Judd did his design mine as well, but I had existing property, I had existing house. This is not an existing house. This is a new house. I oppose it. Sorry, but the neighborhood is in it as well. And we're a tight group. We want to keep it the way it is. We understand the sensitivity of it is. John can develop a septic tank that you can drink water from. I would not want to. But the reality is that it was always meant to keep as one parcel, the parcel's land, forever and ever and ever. And I hope you guys will see it and vote it that way.
Thank you.
May we respond?
Sure.
And we would like to get it that. Let me just respond to a couple things. Number one, being the neighbors' opinions with regard to this, as far as whether they want another house or don't want another house, is really irrelevant to your decision here. Also, with regard to covenant, it could not be legally extended for 30 years, but even if it could have, as he said, it would have expired anyway. Also, with regard to speaking on behalf of other neighbors, you can't really speak with regard to what someone else says. We don't really know what Greenbelt said. We don't know what the other neighbors said. We know what they said, and they can present their own opinions, but presenting opinions of others is really irrelevant. And I'd also like to allow Ms. Mary to give you her position on the whole thing.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm going to stand up.
Introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Layla Ameri. My father is Dr. Shapur Ameri. My mother is Dr. Linda Ameri. This is my brother, Amir Ameri. So we're here. I'd love to speak to a couple of details, but I'd also like to note that for 19, you guys haven't been out there, but 19 also has specific access within its property to the beach itself. It's not, it has a very, very narrow strip. If you look, you can find it online if you look it up. But it was never in 19 is intended to be its own standalone piece of property that can reach the beach. If 21 up and left tomorrow and was sold to somebody else, 19 would still be able to access the beach. And so I think that that's a really good indicator. Personally, my brother and sister, I'm also an attorney. Obviously, this is not my area of expertise. However, I do think that that's a really good indicator that 19 is intended to be its very own piece of land with a home on it. So that's number one. As Deb and John have said, my parents have faithfully paid taxes to Gloucester ever since they've owned the property. And previous owners have done the same, obviously. It has always been taxed to us as 2 separate parcels of land. And my dad and mom bought the land with the intent that my brother and I would have our own house on the 2 pieces of property. And now, granted, they were never able to build the second house themselves when they were younger. And now that was the intent. I mean, obviously, I understand you have certain limitations within what you can consider. However, there are actual humans here who love this land and have been coming to this house, to 19, since we were little kids. And now we take our children there. But I do really want to emphasize, you may think that putting a bench on a piece of land means that you can still enjoy it. I can tell you that that is not in practical reality what will happen. The reality is that the land will not get any use out of it. And the also reality is too And I think it just needs to be said, and I know you guys have received a letter from my brother. Retirement is really hard, especially when people get sick. 19 and 21 are my parents' retirement investment. So when you are denying a variance on a piece of land, you're denying worth to it. My mom is really sick. Unfortunately, that's not an uncommon occurrence in this country. I'm not pretending that we're the only ones who are going through it, but I can tell you that my brother and I are working so hard to help my parents pay for their expenses. And this is how my parents tried to invest. They found real estate to be something safe that they could do. We are not people, anybody can tell you, I'm sure, our very nice neighbors can tell you that the only thing my parents have done to their current house is to replace the roof, and we've painted it. We replace the deck when it gets rotten. We're not trying to disrupt what we believe is a really, really beautiful and unique piece of land. We really are not. And the reason why we are here is to let you know that. So I just wanted to make sure that you all had our perspectives. But to us, having paid 19 to Penny Lane gets $20,000 in taxes every year. It is its own plot of land that you can look up. And yes, this map maybe doesn't show it, but you can see it easily on Zillow anytime you want. You can look on Google Maps, it's right there. So yeah, I just wanted to speak to that, and I'll let my dad and brother chime in if they would like to.
You're welcome to speak if you like.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Do you remember that when I bought the house, you told me, don't forget you have a buildable lot there?
No, I never said that. Thank you. Thank you very much for reminding me. But
Yes, yes, you did.
you know what? As a matter of fact, I never met you.
All right.
Yes,
that's
I
okay.
have.
Thanks.
Yes.
All right. I'd like to speak, please. I'm Amir Mary. Very nice to meet you all. Thanks, Layla, and everyone for making the time to come out here. I appreciate it very much. I'm not a lawyer. Frankly, I don't understand like most of the arguments that are being made here. The way I see it is differently, I think, from any perspective I've heard voiced in it, which is, and I admire you for how well you control yourself. I see this as, excuse me. I see this as taking care of patients. And I see this decision as incredibly harmful to a patient who I happen to care about. I'm so sorry. Who I happen to care about very deeply. And I care about all of my patients very deeply. I care about my mom too. And this is extremely harmful to taking care of her. And we are trying so hard to take care of her, take care of her kids, our kids, her grandkids. And it is extremely difficult to make this happen with, like Layla said, much more eloquently than I am, without this investment. And when we say, you know, the beneficial use, the question I pose to all of you is in whose eyes? In whose eyes do we define this? Is it not in the people's eyes in the city of Gloucester? The beneficial use is entirely at this point in this context. And when you say that it's incumbent upon the applicants to demonstrate that burden, we've done so. We've done so today. So please, look, no further at the kind of things that we're dealing with. I'm sure many of you have God forbid, have lost, have gone through similar experiences. And this is ours, and this is the burden that we have. We really appreciate your consideration of that.
The only other thing I'd like to mention is on the plan, if you could scroll down, I guess you can't see the tail, but
there's a plot plan here, Deb, on the lower.
Yeah.
So what Ms. Mary was talking about is that there's this very thin access to the water, so the main portion of the lot is actually away from the area that one of the abutters had concerns about as far as erosion.
Can you go back to this one?
Yes.
Which lot are we talking about? Number one?
So
Number
this,
one.
yeah, so it's lot one is all of 19 Two Penny. When it was bought as 19 Two Penny, or sorry.
19 and
And
20.
when it was conveyed, sorry, and Rocco would probably speak to this better, in 1964. When this original area was subdivided, it was subdivided and it was lot one.
Where are the two separate addresses on there?
There wasn't,
On this one.
Not in 1964.
and when the Mears bought it, they bought lot one,
Lot one.
which is this.
So lot one right now is 19 and 21. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
So
It has
that,
been divided into 19 and 21.
so if you split that in half, hypothetically, that's 19 and 21.
Yeah, it's not, it's an
Here,
odd
give me
shape.
just a second.
There's a separate plan,
That's what I'm
in
asking.
1992. I don't know if you have that. You can bring that up.
I want to see something different.
Yeah, so it was recorded, endorsed and endorsed by the planning board and recorded, and it was prepared in 1992, 3 years prior to the Mary zoning.
I do have a copy of it. I don't know if I can be allowed to share my screen. I can print it out.
Give me
We have
just,
it, yeah.
just a second, I can,
Are you looking for the A and R, which is the,
yes.
Okay.
all they have is A and R?
I really appreciate all of you speaking, and sharing what you had to say, and the point that I'm coming back to is just the guidance that I'm hearing from the city in terms of the fact that we have to consider both of them as one lot, and I hear that there's what you think is sufficient evidence to say that there's two, but based on what I've seen and what I'm hearing, I do feel like we have to consider it as one. It's not a decision that I frankly am enjoying making. But from what my perspective is, that's what it feels like. The lot is one, has been treated perhaps in an incorrect manner by the city or how it's classified, which is, it's not a great thing, but it seems like in the sense of what this board has purview to do, that our hands are tied in terms of thinking about the lot. To me, I'm considering it as one. I understand it's been taxed separately and you pay taxes on two parcels that you're now finding are unbuildable and all that with it, but I haven't seen anything that's pushing me to.
We're going to show you the 33-year-old plan that shows it was subdivided prior to them owning it. Where, if we can share the screen, it looks like
John,
Cody's
that's
trying
the
to.
A and R that you're talking about, correct?
Yes,
That's the A and R, which
correct.
our legal counsel has already said should not.
Which
be
we
considered.
don't agree with. That's
Well,
the
right.
point.
following-
I
Yeah,
think the board needs to see this plan that was recorded. This.
It
all
is in
sorts
the
of-
packet of information.
Yeah,
And I think what you need to understand is that lawyers, of course, give their opinions, and your counsel is giving you an opinion and advice, but it's an opinion. And we believe that we have provided sufficient evidence to counter that opinion.
Sorry.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So that was
There you go.
prepared in 1992.
So that for the bottom shows both separate lots.
Yeah, so this would be all of lot one, and then 19 is now considered this lot here. Then has this skinny part, and this is considered 21. And they're both owned by the same person.
And that's what you see if you went on the assessor's.
Where did that come from?
This is an A&R plan that was filed with the city in 1992.
Whose purpose was to establish whether or not you need to have subdivision zoning applications to it. It has no other purpose other than that. Which is
Can
what
you explain that one more time? I'm sorry.
An A and R is a document that shows that a proposed division of land is not a subdivision that requires approval under the subdivision control law, which is a whole process that the planning board would do when you want to make a subdivision of land. What the A&R is used for is to show that that proposed division is not a subdivision and that the lots shown on the plan have adequate frontage. But there's no other dimensions of zoning that an A&R can certify. And you'll see there's a disclaimer on there that says that the endorsement is not a certification of compliance with zoning. It's my understanding that this A&R was not recorded until 2024. So when the A&R was endorsed in 1992, that's likely why the assessor's map was updated. But the property was conveyed several times after the endorsement, and it has only ever been described as Lot 1 on the 1964 plan, and there is never any reference to this plan in the legal description.
And I would suggest that that is irrelevant. As I said, deeds are very often conveying more than one lot at a time. And although it is not a subdivision of land, it is a division of property. So the property was divided in 1992 and acknowledged by the city to have been divided to make the city assessed it as such. And as I said, if you go on to the city's GIS map, you will see it as 1920.
What is the date, the 4/14/2024?
That's when it was recorded with the registry.
And it was not before that.
Not that I'm aware of.
In regards to the taxes, we don't necessarily have to go down there necessarily, but they would have had to pay taxes no matter what on 19's acreage.
Yeah, but that's beyond our scope in terms of like what we're considering
Right.
at this point. Like our purview, correct?
I would say the record, I think, is pretty clear that
Yeah.
the applicant has always owned both pieces of land, regardless of whether you consider them 2 lots under the A&R or 1 lot under the deed. They've always owned the same property. And so the tax treatment would reflect that regardless of whether it was divided or not. And again, this board's jurisdiction is not to determine whether or not the assessors applied the appropriate taxes to the property, and there are mechanisms in the law to correct those outside of Title V.
And I would suggest that the board's duty is to look at whether it's manifestly unjust to now determine that they cannot be considered 2 different things.
I see this as I think Aaron has articulated, as currently 1 lot that consequently valuing the presence of the dune property. But that's a critical area, as we've heard from some comments, but just in general. This is an area of a critical resource area for the city, and should be protected. There's a reason why we have regulations to protect those things. And yes, if there's ongoing, if there was an existing facility that needed to be repaired, that's one thing. But new construction puts a significant new burden on the environment. And in this day and age, that's probably not something that we can dismiss through variances. Any other comments?
Let me just check online for you, Jill. Any of the guests online would like to make any comments regarding 19 Penny? Please raise your hand. I can promote everyone to talk if they're having technical difficulties as well. All our guests are promoted to talk if you wish, if you want to unmic yourself, if you have any concern or any comments about 19 Two Penny. Amazing, Phil.
Hearing none. Would you like to make a motion?
Board of Health member Erin feels very differently than human Erin, but that is the hat that I unfortunately have to wear for the vote. I will make a motion to deny the variance request for the proposed that is before us for 19 Two Penny Lane.
Second. Any further discussion from the board? I feel they're paid.
I would hope that if there's other recourse or whatever the city needs to do to be able to do this, because it's not a good feeling decision to be making. And really, I feel like with what's in front of us, this is the decision I have to make. But I do apologize for all that you're going through and really appreciate what you've shared. So, but I feel like this is what.
Well put. There's no further discussion. Call the roll.
Erin, yes.
It's really unfortunate, but I have to say, yes.
DeRosa, yes. Eric, yes. Difficulty.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you.
That's the next day. We can't. Training. That was it. I told the last time I saw them. It's so I saw.
Anybody that seconded that? The board didn't vote on that. We argued about quite a bit. This is sad.
Oh, was it me? Yeah.
Unfortunately, local. That's what you. If we have any.
So Chelsea, we have so many grants to run that and some, but not.
So we're still in
sorry, I
session.
didn't hear what the question was.
Yes, we're still in session.
The next item on the agenda regards the traffic study that all of you should have received, prepared under our direction by Eastern Waste Services. And yeah, if you, Dominic, if you could advise the board as to what the plan of
So-
action is
So
going
two key
forward.
things are important. One is that we should all read it. And, think about what was being, asked for during the sessions and whether or not the response, gives you the answer that you're looking for, the data complete and thorough. Right? And we've confirmed today that there's no necessary time frame for that, because thanks a lot, Rocco. There's no, like it's not a 45-day rule or anything like that. There's several things that have to unfold, as this, as the applicant sort of progresses through the hopper here of being able to, and this was the first deliverable. So our job right now is to read it and say, is it hitting on the need? Do we have any further questions? And to that point, the Wilfavaga and Eastern Waste, and we're amenable to this, would like to come in and talk to the board about all of the path that they're going to take to hit against all of the criteria that has been added, when it would happen, what the implications are, how they're attending to it, so that we're fully, sort of briefed on how the applicant is approaching responding to the conditions, right? So that's really kind of all we wanted to get out today, to just, say like, what are our actions, and that's to read it.
Yeah, so if we have specifically what's been delivered right now is this traffic study. So if we have questions or issues regarding their responses to our requests, we can raise them to Joel and whoever he brings along from EWS. And hopefully that will spur some action, may only spur action on the city side, in the sense of clearly issues have been highlighted with the underpass for the first time in discussing this project, officially recognized. And so that may spur some action that would be useful for this project.
It was very lengthy. Yeah. And I think the summary at the front, I read some of, and then there was like all the charts from like the
Well, there's a lot
actual
of data.
of like all the in the back of the data collection that they did that I attempted to glean something from. So any input that they can provide, and I don't know if this is like a Weston and Sampson third party can look at it, and because I can look at it, but I think any sort of feedback from someone who can provide thorough review would be really helpful. I would personally appreciate that because
that would be
looking
useful,
at
but
it,
that
there was
costs money.
It does, and so we can look into the pricing for that and compare to our budget, and
one, if I don't know if it's something that can we reasonably ask, like I know there are certain costs that like the applicant had to bear before, if that's like realistic, but yeah, I think them coming to explain what it is and talk it in a voice would be helpful. But yeah, looking through it is pretty dense and trying to figure something out.
I have a few comments. I spent a long time reviewing the 140 something pages. And it seems like they want to put some signs up, but something I wondered about is, and I may have sent you something about it. I wonder if they could put up some lights that allows one car to go through, one truck to go through at a time. It's like when you have where I live in Rocky Neck, there's all this construction going on in the street, and they only allow one lane at a time to go by. That could be done with lighting. And a lot, if somebody approaches the thing, it would have to be automatic. Just the light would go on, and only one truck could go through until it goes through. Because it seems like, they did all this study about how many feet you have, and I think the speed limit is 20 miles an hour, and it looks like everybody was going 30 to 35 miles an hour. So, I mean, nobody's staying at the speed limit. And if they both come to that spot at 25 or 30 miles an hour, I don't care how the line of sight is, they're going to crash. So that's my thing of reviewing what they thought they would do. My other comment is there's a certain amount of time we're dealing with here. It's something about 150 days.
That was for them to submit the study, and so they've done that. right?
But what about all the other 37?
So that's what this next meeting would be with Eastern Waste and their legal counsel to walk through how they are going to hit all of the conditions and what their timelines are for addressing the conditions in the sequence that they have to as they move
So
through.
the 150 days
Is now passed.
yeah, so
They delivered their traffic study only the traffic study had to be delivered within 150.
Yeah, some of the things require the construction starting.
okay.
And some of them are precursors to applying for permit stuff. They can start.
Okay, so the only
And that's what they're all-
traffic study was.
So this is unfortunately going to go on for a long time.
No, you still have to have an opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think if it's possible for like Suzanne or Rocco to be at the meeting, if like their leading council is gonna be here again. And also like in terms of Eric's idea on like the signs or potentially lights, like Mike Hale or someone from the DPW, is it appropriate, like depending on the context of the conversation, if like we have questions, like is it within DPW's purview to put like
Lights.
or could we come up with questions for him to say like these are things, like is there certain things that it's like there's no way we're doing that, or that guidance might be helpful, or as like a
So I think any
Yeah.
questions that you have as you're reading it, and if you see there is enough information, there's not enough information you wonder about, if you can, send them, we can see if we have people in town that can offer counsel, because clearly DPW director is reading this report as well. Our legal counsel is reading it. And police and fire will ultimately be looking at it. So just, your thoughts on what, is it or is it not answering the questions that are being posed, I think is important. Chairman, I think there's also people on the line. I don't know if you want to welcome public comment at this point, on this. I know we're just discussing process. But I don't know if there's.
Sure. I mean, if people are expecting to talk about this, I would welcome at this point brief comments if there are specific things that you want to
As it relates
highlight
to
to
process,
us.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If specific things to be highlighted to pay special attention to, we can take those comments. Is there anyone?
Yeah, I have Grizel Ferreira.
Hello,
Yep, go ahead.
it's Vito, not Graziella. I'm using her phone or her computer, I guess. I'm on 220 Magnolia Ave. I'm in the entrance to the Condolin Road Industrial Park, and I'll be directly affected by this. So just a couple of questions I have. Well, one question and one point. I've asked several people in the city, whether it be city council people, I think I even asked Mike Hale, but no one really can give me a definite answer as to, say you guys approve this and everything's kosher. Where does this go after? Does this have to go in front of city council? Does it have to go in front of conservation? Does it go through any other steps? How many more swings at the bat are these guys going to get?
There are a lot of permits that will be required by the EWS, and they have not procured those yet, but those will all have to happen in front of the appropriate committees and permitting bodies. So
I think
yes,
Vito's
that's to
asking about the sequence of that. So perhaps a question to talk to, EWS and also to our councils, what is that sequence?
Right.
And getting us that answer.
So you're hearing that?
Yeah.
Response? Good.
Yeah, I hear. So, and a point I want to make about the light on the bridge, and I two things is, one, do we even own that bridge? Is that not owned by the MBTA? Are they going to allow any work to be done on that without their knowledge?
Well, certainly any modification to the bridge, to the underpass itself would require their permission, but I think we're talking about putting lights before and after, lights or some other safety indicator before and after the bridge, which would be on Gloucester roads, and so that would probably be under Mike Hale's purview.
Okay. Second, I mean, you guys are all Gloucester residents, and you know that it's it's more of a residential area than it is an industrial area, up and down Magnolia Ave, whether you're going towards Manchester or heading towards Little River. People need to get home. And when we're talking about the amount of trucks, if we're going to put a light up and every time a truck is going underneath there, whether it be heading towards, I'm just going to say heading towards Manchester or heading towards Little River, you're going to cause a bottleneck there. And I can tell you from experience, because I go through that bridge more than probably anybody here. There are times when if the bigger trucks are not in the correct gear, you're behind them for a long while before they can crest the top of that hill and get going. So it's going to cause, I personally think, going to cause more traffic and more backup than anything else, which could potentially have you might have an issue with, say there's an emergency or something and you've got a trailer truck in the middle of the road. How are these fire ambulances and police cars going to get through? All stuff we got to think about. That's a critical spot, because you guys remember, you can't come the other way with the larger vehicle. So something we got to think about there.
Yep.
So Vito, if I had to take that as a process question, is that more a question of like, based on the recommendations from this study from the applicant, how will the city then evaluate solutions around the same? Is that the line of questioning that you're coming up with? Is that a fair summation?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
One general question that I think all of us have had that have looked at participated in the hearing as well as looked at the study itself is, where did the number 149 come from? So that's the number of vehicles per day entering the facility. And so they maintain that that's a minor increase over what currently exists, but have provided, as far as I'm aware, very little data to substantiate that. So that's another question that we have, because that's relevant to your comment about the traffic increase.
That was, I think, 18B. There's somebody in the back here.
Can I speak?
Sure.
Tom Testaverde of 22 Magnolia Avenue.
Yeah.
Just before the right on the road. As far as under the bridge, a light, to me, very crazy. For the reason is even
stop light you're talking about?
Any kind of light there. I mean, even when traffic's coming out of Conlon Road, at the end of the day, there's a lot of vehicles coming down there, and a light would just complicate that, I think, and everybody be waiting in line. I've called a few times the city. One of the things I find under that bridge is that the yellow line disappears. So people that really don't know it, they think it's one lane, like sometimes, and they come underneath, they're halfway in this lane. So I've called a few times and they came and painted it, but you gotta.
It goes away because people ride over.
Yeah, exactly. It goes away because somebody has to maintain it, That's the way I look at it. I did see some of those numbers, speed limit. And I almost think they're fudged, because I know these vehicles are going down there a lot faster, both ways. Yeah. And by my house, just before they take the right onto Conlon Road, they come down there sometimes close to 40 miles an hour, the trucks. And whether this goes through or not, I was wondering if it's possible on that end by Conlon Road. Could it be possible to put a few signs that say no Jake's brake or something like that? I think I've seen that in some other cities.
What is that?
Because when they're coming down 40 miles an hour, they put the Jake brake on, and the truck goes very disturbing to everybody on that end.
Understand.
I mean, I don't know if that's possible, if it's legal or not. I don't know, but there is
Not
some
our
speed.
purview, but that's certainly something that could be raised to DPW, et cetera, or people that control that sort of thing.
Right. Well,
It's pretty scary.
Thank you.
It's a tight turn.
Yeah.
So I'll add that line of questioning in terms of process and the role that we take in interpreting recommendations and actions. Okay.
So are they going to the January meeting is the plan? Or?
Yeah, we were thinking that we would, if you are amenable. I'm going to look into third-party traffic study costs, or not traffic study, but analysis costs. And if, depending upon if that price point, we can, get that done, that may affect it January versus February, right? Because if you want to see professional opinion. But that's what it
So,
would be.
so do think about this more,
And get
compile
any
questions, and can we feed them to you? And you-
Please.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mark, I would welcome your thoughts on it, please.
I don't have good thoughts.
Well, I think it's really important that you're looking at this with a critical eye to be sure that we are, hitting what we need to be hitting.
We've been back in the courtroom one time ago.
Yeah.
Vito, did you want to speak again?
Yeah, yes, just one quick thing that we had a speed study done in front of 220 Magnolia Ave and Condolin Road. It is exhibit 32, I believe. I'm almost positive I put the exhibit in, it was accepted. If you guys want to take their speed study and look at the one that the Gloucester Police Department did, and it's verified from the Gloucester Police Department, I can send you the email from the officer that had it done. It's all verified. But it's there. It's
Yeah.
there, exhibit 32. You can take both their speed study and the one we did and look at them side by side. Now, the one we did was there a lot longer. I don't think they had theirs out more than 30 hours. Ours was probably like 5 or 6 days. I mean, we clocked people going 77 miles an hour in front of Condolin Road on Magnolia Ave. 95% of vehicles driving Magnolia Ave are speeding at all times. I'm probably one of them, but not much more over 30. I can say that. Not much more over 30. I don't do 77.
This makes me even more wanting a light there to stop people from running through it so fast.
And that's not
a
a
light's gonna stop people from doing that. I agree that in theory, you would hope that they do that, but generally does that.
Well, I think regardless of there being a transfer station, obviously that's what's in front of us. There's issues with the area.
Yeah.
Are you gonna slow the traffic?
But it's gonna add to it. I think it's the point that people are trying to make. Is that, you have all these people, whether from commercial vehicles or not. There's additional 149 is the number I think you guys said, for traffic. I mean, that's absurdly high. And you're talking about big trucks.
Yeah. And also I think that's when you're reading the study, I think it was 18B that asked for them to give us all of their current traffic to their current operation. And they did not respond to that. They basically said there will be no more than 149. So they continue to sort of put this number out there. And we continue to ask the question and we still don't have that answer. So
quickly they lost other stuff.
Yeah, but they've had 150 days they could have been counting. So, and that of course, triggers lots of things at that volume, that truck volume goes up.
Just two questions about the traffic.
But for now, if you guys can please give it a really careful read, and think back to the purpose of the question. I found it very helpful to read the early preamble in the decision when our legal counsel was bringing up the gaps. And then those gaps, of course, created the conditions. And in the case of 18 in particular, that was in response to gaps in data that was making us feel very uncomfortable. So if you could look at it with that eye and ask questions or tell us any discrepancies you see, that'd be helpful. And then we'll get that to the applicant, get that to our legal counsel, get that to other experts, and then come together and have a presentation on it. Nope. Joe, am I missing anything? I think
no, I don't think so. Are we likely to have them present at January 8th, the next meeting?
Yeah, so we can certainly say that January 8th would be the next meeting. It's just, and again, there's no timeline. We were told that we have to sort of respond to this until such time as they're actually applying for the operational permit. Or I forget which exact permit it is. I think it's the right to build. But in any event, it's important that we sort of have our ducks in a row before that point. So January 8th seems like a good date.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Anyone else wishing to speak? Everyone's.
No? You're up next.
So from a recap standpoint, what we have continued to be working on, and Gabby can get into this as well, a lot of the progress that we're making on rental registries and septic compliance. On the septic compliance thing, we are in front of, we sent the memo to the mayor with all the numbers of how we'll be rolling out the communications across all wards for those properties that are not compliant to our regulations, which is 3.5 years with no function check. Any property that's over that, we are reaching out to them and letting them know that they have to have a function check performed. So that campaign is starting now for Ward 1, and we'll be up in front of City Council briefing all the other councilors as well on how that will unfold. So Connor Williamson will be running that program, and it's going to be interesting to see our level of response. It's our hope that people will quickly get the function check. Because
Can that proceed through the cold weather?
Yes.
Good.
And then if they decide not to get a function check after a few different increasingly stronger letters, the first letter is a notice of non-compliance, the next letter is an order to correct, and the third letter is order to appear before the board. And so we're going to be bringing some number in every board meeting before you. And they'll have the right in that meeting to say why they refuse to get a function check or why they don't feel they have to. And we, will look for your guidance, right? So obviously at that point there could be fees and considerations. There is no financial relief in this mix right now because we don't have any funding to support anybody that has an issue financially. So that's probably going to come up. But most importantly, we just really want your support in terms of helping these homeowners make sure their systems are up to speed. It gets a little heavy when we get to Ward 5. So every ward, Gabby has a number here. Every ward has like Ward 1 in total has maybe a little bit over 100. Wards 2, 3, and 4, and I'm on page 36 of your packet or 38 of your packet. Wards 2, 3, and 4 have small number based on where they're located, but Ward 5 has what is that, over 700, almost 800 properties that are non-compliant. So out of the 2,683 out of the 966 properties that are non-compliant, about 700 of them or so are in Ward 5. So we're saving them for last, just because we want to be able to hone how we manage through this. So we're anticipating probably getting to them by the summertime, I'm guessing.
And by then the word will have been out. Folks will know that what the process is when it gets to work.
So run front page in the newspaper by February.
Yeah. And we've offered also in our letter to the mayor to come and speak in any board meetings or anything to help educate people on answer any questions that they may have. So we're really hoping folks are going to be proactive in advance of us having to get more serious with them. So that's really a lot of what we've been focusing on. Public Health Excellence Grant, an offer is out for our program manager. So hopefully we'll be able to make a really fantastic announcement on that in a week or so. And we'll also then be moving into the work that we have to do to, get access to the funding to deploy. So we had some great meetings this week on that with them. And then as it relates to the RISE grant, we're deployed as no changes there in deployment, unfortunately. We really hope we have recovery coaches live by now, but there's still some pending glitches there. But the rest of the programs are operating. What we have to add now is more communication to make sure that the community is well aware of where to go and what to do. So that's what's coming up next there. I think that's it in the interest of time. That's material from a director's update. Do we move on to
Sure.
Gabby and rest of the team? Oh,
Very-
Chelsea gets to go next.
Me,
Sorry, sorry.
I'll go quick in the interest of time. Again, our team of 3 right now, 2 with Lacey on maternity leave. We focus on youth substance use prevention and mental health promotion, both in the city of Gloucester, and we have some regional grants across 7 communities. Some highlights: we just had our last of 5 mental health first aid trainings for adults who work with youth yesterday. And we were able to train 56 adults in this most recent kind of spree of 5 trainings. So over the course of 2025, we've trained 126 adults, giving them the skills to respond to signs of youth distress. So the ripple effect of that is 126 adults. Each of those adults interact with many youth. These are teachers, these are coaches, these are YMCA staff, parents, some clinicians, even neighbors, grandparents. So we're really happy to know that there are people in our communities who are equipped to better support the youth in their lives. It's really exciting. It's good photos too. We've had several volunteer events for our Gloucester Youth Leadership Council, one of which happened last night. We had 5 of our youth leaders across middle and high school volunteering at a veterans dinner at the American Legion in Gloucester, helping serve them dinner, and having conversations, kind of having that intergenerational interaction. And they chose to stay till 8 p.m. The event went till 8, and David said, "You guys can stay as long as you need. You can leave when your ride is here." And several of them just stayed throughout the entire thing, which is really cool. We also on November 22nd, it was really good. I wasn't there, but David was there, so
that's awesome.
This
is our first event with VA, right? Working with the VA.
Yes, and there will be more. So David's been working really hard collaborating with the Ruth Baker Senior Center and the VA to host more intergenerational opportunities, events, and volunteer opportunities, both with veterans and older adults. We, in a younger kids vein, had 17 middle and high school youth leaders volunteer on Saturday, November 22nd. They picked out toys and clothes to be donated locally to Cape Ann kids through the YMCA and Hobson Kids Holiday Gifts Program. Kata was kind enough to donate a bus and driver who was able to transport the gifts and the kids from the store to their respective locations. And Kata will again be donating a trolley for this weekend's rescheduled holiday parade from the State Fish Pier to Kent Circle by Stage Fort. So our kids will be walking in the parade, handing out candy canes, and representing Gloucester Youth Leadership Council, and just kind of spread some joy in the community. So if you're around, come by. It's at 3 o'clock on Sunday. You'll see us walking with the trolley. Then just lastly, I'll say one more thing. In addition to the mental health first aid trainings we've been offering, we have started a 3-part workshop series called Trusted Adult North Shore, which is a shorter 90-minute, not so much a training, but a workshop that allows adults to talk with other adults about how to best support their young people in their lives and hear directly from youth as well. So we had the first of 3 workshops on November 20th, where we had 27 attendees. We had youth panelists talking about what qualities are
Is this
helpful.
Gloucester specific, or is this?
This is regional. The workshop that happened in November was at the Cape Ann YMCA in Gloucester. The 3rd workshop will actually be in Gloucester again at Hammond Castle on January 29th, and that's intended for employers who employ youth or have youth patrons. The workshop that's coming up next week is actually in Manchester at the Landmark Elementary and Middle School on December 10th, and that's for a general audience. So any adult who interacts with kids, like teachers, coaches, YMCA, Parents who couldn't attend the first workshop or employers who can attend the third workshop are invited to come. And we found that the youth testimonies were so powerful that we decided to have an all youth panel moving forward. So we had kind of a mix of adults and youth. Moving forward, we're going to have all youth because that is what the adults, that's the feedback we received. It's like, this is what was the most meaningful. So we're getting a diverse representation of youth, both from Gloucester and our other regional youth prevention network communities from Danvers up to Rockport. So if you're available, December 10th, 6 to 7:30 at Landmark School. It's an in-person and there's a virtual option as well. So if folks are like, I'd love to go, I can't be there in person, they can register and they'll be sent the Zoom link. Those are my 3 highlights. I'm going to stop there.
Chelsea. Fantastic stuff to see the local association work, with the youth and multi-generational. I think it's fantastic. Debbie?
Right. I'll try to be brief. I know you guys had a long, emotional evening. On the rental registry, it is getting a lot of numbers recently. The very last communication that went out was the newspaper article by Ethan, and it sparked a lot of last minute interest, and maybe that deadline, people were very deadline focused on the fines, and so suddenly about another 200 applicants showed up. So some important numbers are, we originally had, under the rental dwelling certificate program, we had 466 applicants. We now have 1,616 applicants, representing 4,787 individual units. So that is very significant. What we thought would happen with this program did. We were guesstimating we would end up with about 5,000 units, and we're just about there. I'm sure.
How many do you think you're missing?
Oh, I mean, there's no way to know exactly.
But that's where you come in, because as we have complaints, or as we find people that haven't registered, now we will start to bring them before the board as well.
Right. And we actually had a case, a complaint from a tenant who was complaining because she was paying. She found out that they had cross metered and she had been paying for heating for all the other units. And when we went to look at it, that property was not registered with us, and they have multiple rental units. And what we've found from feedback from folks who are registering is so many people had no idea there was a prior rental dwelling certificate requirement, that there were housing codes. They just didn't know. And so the opportunity to educate is there. Right now we're just doing this sort of feet on the ground work of registering, and we're not, what we're building right now is the service aspect. So the list that will go out, or that will be posted, that will be all of the registered properties will be available. And there's other we're working with other entities to look at the services they provide and that we will provide on our website. So that's what we're working on now. There's been letters out to realtors so that people who are coming into town, that's how they would find out that there's a registry requirement. So we continue to build. I know there's been many stumbles along the way, but we continue to learn and take in what we've been hearing.
What's your sense as to whether or not you're contacting with out-of-town owners of rental properties?
So I think the out-of-town property owners were probably more responsive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
so how do they know about these things?
Because we sent them the first.
So you know about them, so you sent them something.
Yes,
okay.
We did. I think 17,000. I can't remember. Whatever the number of property owners there are in Gloucester, we sent it to everyone
at their mailing
address,
their residence address.
Correct. Yeah. So wherever you are, if you own a property in Gloucester, you got notified in July. Then another round went out to multifamily property owners. They had already gotten the first one, And we heard from many folks, they thought that it was spam, and so they ignored it. Then they got the second one and they were like, oh, maybe this is real. And then the article in the paper, it was like, oh my God, this is real. And so I think, it was unfortunate that fear was motivating folks in the end because they were afraid of the $500 fine. And we assured them, no, our objective is to get you registered and educated about safe housing for tenants, and to let them know we're partnering with them for services and how we can help them. So I think to that effect, we're well underway, but we have a lot of work to do. There's still a lot to do. But I think that was the most, the last month there's a lot of work. And the great thing that's also happening out of that is any folks that are on septic gets reviewed by Connor and for compliance. So he's been able to find non-compliant properties for septic compliance through the rental registry, which is.
And again, same thing, people are not aware they have septic systems. They weren't aware they have obligations with septic systems. So there's this big gap in understanding of what your requirements are.
Yeah.
Is there anything deeper than that going on? Like if a rental property is now got 4 or 5 rental units, but their septic system was built for a single family house?
We have found those.
There's only been a handful, but
It's more short-term renters. Advertising 15 people, and it's a 3-bedroom system. So we have found 1 or 2 of those.
And that's important to stop because it's also written into the ordinance.
Oh, yeah.
You can't have more than for a septic system.
Yeah. And I think, I've responded to some complaints last summer out on Winter Sheep where that was happening, where the complaint was it was a giant party house and they had a 3-bedroom septic system. You did? How was it? Did you use the bathroom?
Giant party house, yeah. Beautiful home.
I bet. And then just on a housing front, you can see there are 23 cases that were in process this month, many of which had rodent issues. And it's also that time of year where it's winter, mice come inside. But that has, just as a segue, a lot of the nuisance complaints that are coming in right now are rodent centric. Rats in certain areas downtown, along just about everywhere. So I think that it's an issue that the mayor's brought up. I spoke to city councilors about it, and hopefully we'll be working together to come up with some ideas of how to address the larger issue, not the individual issues.
It's a neighborhood issue.
Yeah, it's a community issue, not. I was just out at a property that they were trapping, many rats, and each one was pointing, is looking at the other property as they are the issue, and it's collectively an issue. So it's hard to solve because it's not just one item. And then I don't want, I know there's the topic of Jim's bagels.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people ask me.
I was going to ask that question next.
I will, but if you bear with me for 1 minute, I really want to highlight the work that Sophia's been doing, and the work we've all been doing about the risk level inspections and fees that are rolling out in January. So there's been a lot of communication to all of the food service operators of how we will now be approaching inspections. And this is, I think we've done many presentations on this, but it just rolled out. Dominique was very gracious in putting her name to the letter. But the good news is we've had very little concerning feedback. I had one person come to me about the fee, specifically about the fees. Another person was confused about the process. But in general, I believe it's been well received. And people are now starting to use the new system and permit through that.
So there seemed to be some level of an increased level of angst regarding inspections at restaurants a month ago. Is that abated now, or?
Yeah, that was again, people sort of unaware of what it meant for them and not understanding. So a lot of the work that we've been doing is newsletters. Sophia's created newsletters to brief people on the plans. I wrote a summary letter of what to expect and why. Yeah, I think the biggest, there was a meeting that where 3 different restaurateurs came to the mayor and was complaining about like what is happening. You know, we're seeing the inspector so often. And it was for different reasons. They were seeing the inspectors. Some had plans, others had, issues with rodents and others. And then others weren't sort of satisfying some basic requirements by food code. And so what I explained to them is this may be different than how they might have experienced things in the past, but make no mistake, this is the expectation that the state have of them as restaurants. And they were very unaware of how much law has changed. Now it's their obligation to know what the law is, right? When they get their permit from us, they acknowledge that they're going to be compliant to code, but they're not aware. And so we've been focusing on education again, like in most things, like here's what you have to do, here's why, let us help you get creative about it. So I think that's been helpful, right?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So anyway, so I didn't want the Jim's to overshadow all of the important work we're doing with the food establishments. And so that's all rolling out and live right now. So that's Sophia's.
So let's talk about Jim.
No, and we're going to.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to say that first before we went
Okay.
into a giant Jim thing. So unfortunately, the way we found out about Jim's was on social media. Sophia saw it, I think it was Saturday night, and
Did you see it?
went out immediately the next morning, worked with him on what needed to happen, and there were some significant sanitation issues that needed to be dealt with. What we did discover was that he has had weekly pest management since I think February. So there was very active pest management there, which I had a meeting with the head of the pest management company on site to make sure that it wasn't a technician issue not communicating well, because there's always, the responsibility of the facility operator to make sure that there's good sanitation and no entry points. And if the technician is not communicating that to the operator, then there's like a miss happening. I think there was other misses happening, but it had been written about multiple times that there was entry points and that there were sanitation issues. So that's what we've been working with Jim on, making sure that the standard is met at all times. That
And he's been responsive.
He's been responsive.
Good.
Yeah.
But the store is closed. At least
They
it was.
closed. No, it's not closed anymore.
Oh, it is.
It was closed during the period of time. He did a massive cleanup, and I just got a garbage complaint that his dumpster was too full. Well, it's too full because he was removing a bunch of stuff from inside. One of the things for harborage is if you have lots of equipment that's no longer in use but kind of piled up into corners of your establishment, it's very hard to notice if there's rodent activity. So one of the things that he did is remove a lot of that stuff, and has done some very deep cleans of the facility, and is now working on with the pest management company to plug all the holes that were identified. Sophia and I were both there with pest management and went through the entire list inside and outside the building to see where the entry points could be. He's already at a max of once a month. I asked him to extend the trapping, the number of traps per square footage, so that we could get if you only put 5 traps down, you're only going to get 5 rodent captures. So I asked him to increase the number of traps so that we could really see whether they were controlling or not controlling, but clearly evidenced by video is there were active rodents wandering around in the cases and on that front area. But there was a lot of food residue left and Jim has indicated that running a bakery is very difficult because you're constantly, he's also a wholesaler. So he's got people in there producing all the time. So there's a lot of food that sits out, crumbs and nuts and seeds and things. But we are working with him on improving his sanitation. Oh, we're watching now the videos, yeah. So I think, and I didn't see it, but somebody said there was another complaint today. I haven't seen the video, but I think what we've suggested to all parties, we had one complaint in RC Quick Fix. And most of the complaint and chatter is happening on social media.
Yeah, so I think that's
we've-
a really important message.
Yeah.
Call the health department directly, don't post it on social media, because we're gonna be able to respond a lot faster.
Yeah, and then we can get the facts and not the swirl that's happening.
Right.
So anyway, that's that. And if you have other questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if you have anything septic wise, aside
No,
from the
we-
compliance.
Yeah,
Oh.
pumping's going out, like the compliance letter is going out. We're working on developing or not developing, but working on exploring a software-based program to potentially help Connor deal with basically tracking everything. And that would be paid through the public health grant. And so we're in the process of calling a bunch of references. We've gotten 4 callbacks out of the 7 or so that are there, and so collecting references and then going to build out a beta program to test that, and that should make basically compliance, the monitoring of the compliance really seamless and not take a lot of man hours, which frees up time for actually dealing with compliance issues.
That would be significant.
But that's about all I've got.
Anything else?
We met with the mayor elect, briefed them on all that we do.
Yeah.
And that was a hour and a half meeting that could have been longer. But we're looking forward to working with.
Did he meet the whole department or?
There wasn't enough time allowed, but Chelsea and Gabby came in and represented their side of the house. We wanted to have, and I think once he's fully in the office, we'll definitely have him in and have him sit in the staff meeting and have everybody talk about what they do and give him more information.
Good.
We're looking forward to that. That's it though for us. Busy month. And you'll have to go to City Hall and look at our decorated door.
Which
They'll
one
let us
is it?
get previews.
You said?
It's the conference room door when you walk in. It's where the budget and finance meets, and we did a play on kindness is the flag we all reach for. So we made a gigantic lobster pot tree, and we all made individual lobster pots with like different words that represent kindness in different languages in our community.
They are.
That was fun.
I got a sneak peek
Oh, that's
on
what
it
you did.
earlier when I was in, so I got to see it in action. So then breaking sticks and have to make some signs. So,
While we're talking about
yeah, just figuring everything else in.
housing.
They're arty lobster pots.
Yeah.
Not real lobster.
Oh, we should put it on our social media.
So
Oh, yeah.
concerns of the board?
And one thing to bring up for concerns of the board. So we may have 1 or 2, or not concerned, is that one we bring
No,
up?
they're
Oh,
concerned.
never
I'm
mind.
concerned,
No.
are we gonna get a fifth? Is that what you're gonna tell us, Cody?
No.
A fifth we
A
need
fifth member? We need a
of the
fifth
meeting.
member.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need-
Yes.
or wasn't there only 4? We need a 5th band member.
Yeah, we still
Yeah,
need a
of
fifth.
the boy band or
Yeah.
a drummer.
Girl band. We need a 5th, right?
Yeah.
Because
We
we're
do.
supposed to-
So we were talking to the mayor, and he believes that we should work with the new administration on that placement.
So hopefully that's good.
I don't have any other concerns. Nice work with all that you're doing. balancing
Anything
everything.
else?
Motion to adjourn?
Wait, Cody, what did you do?
Oh, sorry. Oh,
No, it's okay.
Okay.
sorry, Cody.
You can say it.
I can say it afterwards.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you all.